I think the more honest and transparent we can be with ourselves, we can then really step into and up level what it is that really truly brings us that feeling of love and adjusting our goals and everything accordingly so that we can just live in that life. And then everything starts to actually expand naturally when we feel that more regularly.
Well, hello there, prosperity seeker. Welcome to another episode of the Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez. And as always, I am so thrilled, so honored that you are spending your time here with me. And I am so excited to share today's guest with you. She's actually one of my personal friends. You are going to fall in love with her. And we're going to talk all about money today. And she is an expert on it, but you will absolutely love her take on money. But before I introduce her, if you're listening to the audio version of this episode, be sure you're following the podcast on your favorite app. And to see what we're up to, head on over to allysonchavez.com. We've got free workshops, meditations, resources there to really help your success without struggle actually happen. And guess what? I am traveling now, and I would love to see you in person. If you know someone who's looking for speakers at their event, I would love to connect. So feel free to shoot me an email at clientcare@allysonchavez.com. So my guest today is the amazing Amber Duggar. And let me tell you just a little bit about Amber. She is the founder of Profit for Keeps, which is a system developed for online entrepreneurs to end the stress and anxiety around numbers, which I so appreciate because I love money and I sometimes get overwhelmed by the numbers. This is a holistic system combining personal finance and business cash flow strategies using Profit First and YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. She has helped hundreds of coaches implement this system and helped thousands more calculate revenue goals that actually make sense. She's a certified health coach from IIN and worked in corporate finance for 15 years before venturing out on her own in 2015 and thrives on being location independent. She loves traveling, wine, bicycles, knitting, and a good cup of tea if in England and coffee if in Italy. Sweet Life Purposeful Money is a high vibe community of virtual service-based entrepreneurs seeking a group to up-level their money game. And you can join them at amberduggar.com/community. Amber, you're
Allyson,
here finally.
I know. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so honored.
This is going to be such a fantastic conversation. And I think what people are most going to be surprised by is knowing that you were in corporate finance for 15 years and you are so amazingly feminine. Like your whole, everything about you, your voice, your face, your whole flow is exactly that. It's feminine and it's flow. But you also have a really sharp head for numbers. So first, I want to know what's your biggest pet peeve in online business?
Oh my gosh. Well, before I get into that, I just want to say to everyone listening or watching that I truly honor your time and I truly honor your courage to be listening to this podcast right now, because I know that this topic is incredibly emotional. Probably the last thing I've heard so many things that people would rather do rather than learn or listen about money. So I just really commend you for being here. And I think that the more that you really empower yourself with financial knowledge, the nervous system settles. And that's when we can really open ourselves up for some really beautiful things when it comes to our impact. So I thank you for being here. So my biggest pet peeve, honestly, is I hear all the time this concept of charge your worth. And it comes from a really beautiful place, really does. And I think that if we were to break that down, we would hear this a lot less. And the reason for that is when we come to looking at pricing our offers, our packages, we tend to, especially as impact-driven women, tend to feel like, oh, well, this is so easy. And I'm not necessarily going to be doing a ton of work. So I don't really feel comfortable charging more. And then a lot of times the response will be, oh, well, you need to charge your worth. Like you are so valuable, which is absolutely true. We're infinitely valuable, but it has nothing to do with our pricing and it has nothing to do with our offers. Our pricing is directly reflected by the value that our clients see in either the experience or the transformation, nothing to do with your worth. And so that is probably my biggest pet peeve for sure, but it truly can be easily moved into recognizing we're infinitely valuable. We are a conduit of investment for our clients to really be able to say, this is a top priority. We put our money where our priorities are, and money is truly just a conduit of our intentions. So when we become a conduit of investment and allow them to really see, one, you're the right person to do this with. Two, the experience is absolutely what they're looking for, and they see themselves getting the result that they so desperately are looking for. That is honestly all they need to be able to feel very confident and comfortable investing. And so that's my biggest pet peeve, Allyson.
Do you know what? I love that so much. And this is why, because we've all heard that. And I tied up my self-worth in my clients' results, which turns me, I see your monkey in the background. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, it turned me into a performing monkey for my clients. And it was about, I got to give them more. I got to give them more. Not because I was so concerned about value, although I was. Like, I wanted to make sure that they had value, but it was coming from a place of, I'm probably not enough yet. And so I need to give them more to offset my not enoughness with the investment that I'm asking them to make into me. But they weren't making an investment into me. They were making an investment into them. And so that's one of the reasons why my business tanked so spectacularly after I had reached multiple six-figure success, was that it was all about my value. And I had tied it to my worth. I had tied how much my company was making into my own worth, and the results my clients were getting, whether or not they did the work, didn't matter to me. It was a reflection on my worth. And so thank you so much for putting that so eloquently, that it's the value of the experience that they're going to get and the transformation that they can see for themselves. But our worth is never on the table. And that was one of the big lessons that God wanted me to learn from that whole experience was, your worth is intrinsic. Your value is intrinsic. It doesn't matter how much is or isn't in your bank account. So, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Nobody has said that before about their biggest pet peeve for businesses. And I love it. I love it. It's so great. Okay. So you have a program called Profit for Joy. What do you mean? And how do you define profit for joy?
Profit for Joy is a component in our framework called Profit for Keeps. And I believe that Profit for Joy truly is a reflection of because we're all different. We're all going to be having feelings of love from a different perspective. So, that feeling when, like, what is something that you really love to do, Allyson, that just gives you this really beautiful, glowing white light feeling?
Oh, well, travel.
I
really love to travel. And if it ends at a gorgeous ocean, that ocean. Mm-hmm.
So what is on your top 3 that you haven't yet experienced that you'd like to travel to?
Oh, the Amalfi Coast in Italy. Bali. Gosh, those are my top 2. What would be my top 3? Amber, you've gone all over the world. Where do I need to go for this gorgeous aquamarine water?
Well, Cancun is really great for that.
Cancun. I have been to Cancun a couple of times.
Cuba.
I've not been to Cuba.
They have a really beautiful turquoise water. So you can, as you're just thinking through these places, you're feeling this thing that we can't describe. Words can almost handicap us in a way when we come to true feeling of love. And I think that it's the center most important point of our business and about our pricing and about the way that we conduct ourselves. Because without having something so beautifully focused on, which is that feeling of love and being able to touch other hearts and being able to be in this high vibrational flow on a regular basis, that is what drives us to sustainability. So Profit for Joy for me is simply put a bucket list of things that we really truly want to either experience or maintain in our life that gives us that feeling so that we can touch the hearts of others.
And that without saying it in these words, that really is the feminine driving. That's the feminine leading and the masculine supporting. If it's buckets for experiences that you desire to have, now all of a sudden you want to lean into learning the numbers and what does this mean, and what is profit first, and what, like, how does that actually like divide out, and like how do I create the buckets? Because I've worked your program, and you are very clear in that this is about like, what are the experiences that you want to have, and we need to create intention around that. We need to create a space for that so that the money can flow into that bucket. And I had never thought about money that way before. Like, sure, like I love to travel and love to, wear fine clothes and love to eat good foods and, have experiences with my family and, things like that. But those were kind of almost guilty pleasures, quite honestly, until I allowed myself to just fully receive them and gave myself permission to actually want them. And then they do become the driver. So what you're saying is like the emotion and the experience is what makes you sustainable and makes your business sustainable, not you crunching numbers all the time.
No, absolutely not. The crunching of the numbers is something that can easily be done with a proper spreadsheet in like 5 minutes. The information that you receive from that, and also the active process of deciding what it is that you want this conduit of intentions, this very neutral energy, which is money, how it can support that feeling of love, that feeling of joy, what we really care about, and why we went into business for the first place. So the calculation and the number crunching is a very simple process, but it's the information that we can then start to use our creative mechanism to be able to come up with these solutions without having to think really hard and work really hard, but more visualize and feel into the result of going to the Amalfi Coast, for example, walking on the Amalfi Coast with your children, seeing them running in front of you and your husband's hand in your hand. That feeling right there, right now, you can feel it. You can experience it, you can feel it. And our nervous system does not differentiate between imagined and what we're actually experiencing physically. That's a really exciting thing, because when we start to do this on a regular basis, and we also look from a practical perspective, okay, these are the things that I have been omitting from my spending because money is 99% behavioral and emotional. So we could have all sorts of reasons why we are either not allocating money towards this or not giving ourselves the opportunity to experience something for ourselves, thinking that it's selfish or thinking that it's a guilty pleasure, but instead transforming it into, this is a beautiful service that allows me to feel that high vibrational love that is then going to help this ripple effect and impact so many others by making sure that we're also taking care of ourselves. And if we were all to do this on this planet, I do believe that we would have this incredible resurgence of elevated consciousness, of just feeling this incredible love. And it all starts with, yes, let's figure out how we can have our business support that feeling and allow us to really settle our nervous system so that we can open ourselves up to really seeing solutions for how we can make a greater impact in our chosen field and with our clients that we've chosen.
So somebody said once that has just really stuck with me. She said, money is for nurturing, not for safety.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really agree. I really agree with that. I think that on a surface level, it does make us feel safe. But if we're only ever after money so that we can feel safer and safer and safer, we'll never get enough. There will never be enough, because what if this catastrophe? What if that accident? What if this economy? What if this thing happens? Like there are so many variables to that. And that's one of the things that I teach as well, is that like money is there to nurture you. It's not for your safety. You've got to connect with your higher power. That's what gives you that feeling of safety, no matter what is going on in your life. And then you stop getting so grabby. I mean, that's what and I've experienced that myself. I've been in survival with money. I've been really grabby with money before, and, hoarding it, at least in my mind, if not, under my mattress, so to speak. How do you get people, like when you're talking to your clients or to prospective clients, I imagine most of them come to you in some sort of survival around money or some sort of fear around money. And so how do you get them to, like, do they flip really quickly to see like, oh no, money is actually meant to nurture us and support us, and it's this feeling of love that we're after, that our business is now going to support? Do they climb onto that bandwagon pretty quickly?
Everyone is so different. So some people actually come with very little, if any, fear around money. Others come with complete sense of repulsion around money. So everyone has a different story around it. And that, therefore, the journey is going to be different. But what I would say that is the biggest pivotal point for many businesses is simply recognizing that there is a solution, that they aren't alone, and they aren't feeling this isolation anymore. Because money is probably one of our top taboo subjects. So I'm so grateful for podcasts such as yourselves that are really looking to change that and to say, no, we're going to talk about this, because without talking about this, we are isolated, and when we're isolated, there's a lot of chaos, and that's reflected in scientific theory. We could go all into that, but essentially, when you feel isolated, it is one of the worst feelings that we don't share. It's one of the worst feelings that there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of, negative conditioning around money. Others have other experiences. So others may feel like, I actually didn't have a lot of experience with money, but I know that I'm really scared to spend it. So there are people that come to me that have lots of savings and are just so scared to spend the money. So there's two polar opposites, I would say, with that. But I think that when we look at money as a conduit of our intentions, and like you were saying, when we don't look at it to feel safe anymore. Yes, we want to be able to have a certain amount in the pipeline so that we can just easily pay our bills that are upcoming.
Mm-hmm.
But when we hold on to money because we're scared that we aren't going to have it anymore, one, it creates stagnancy in the energy. Just like if you have a river and it's flowing, your main part of the river is very clean and crystalline because it's moving very naturally. Money and energy want to move. It never wants to stay still. And when we have it on the side of the bank where there might be like a branch in the way and it's just starting to get more murky on the side, that's what money does when it's stagnant and it doesn't go anywhere. So we want this to actually be flowing and moving. And I do believe very wholeheartedly that yes, when we need money because we have something that needs to happen, something miraculously happens. But money is truly going to just help us be better to ourselves. And like you said, this nurturing quality. And I truly do think that the sooner that we can settle our nervous system around money, we no longer have contaminated time thinking about it, which then creates so much more expansive creativity. And so it's truly worth spending the time to empower yourself around it so that it can be used as an efficient tool and not so much as this thing that we have all these other memories associated with it and it can really repulse us from it.
Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate you saying that we have contaminated thinking around our money. Like, oh yeah, I remember that. And there are still some days where I have to remind myself. I mean, this is thousands of years of programming that we all have. So it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong or, any of that, but it's just we've got all of this programming that we have to replace with this, like, no, it's meant to flow. Like, it's okay that it's flowing. And to your point, like when we need the miraculous happens. But I think that if we want the consistent, and we do. I mean, we love the miraculous, but we also love the consistent. And that's where the practicality and the implementation of the money comes into play, where we need to lead with the vision and we need to allow money to nurture us and let love lead the way. But there are also those practical steps and those structures that we need to create so that money can help us to love even more than we even think that we're capable of right now. So let's talk a little bit about some of those practicalities and the practical application of money without it taking over everything. So what do you recommend the first steps that entrepreneurs would take to make their businesses both profitable and sustainable? Because those are two different things I have found.
Absolutely. So I would say the very first thing that you want to do is just take a moment and ask yourself, what is it that I want my money that comes into the business to do for me? And so you can just start by looking at, well, let's just look at all of my personal expenses that I want to be able to pay with consistency from my business, being able to provide a consistent paycheck, even if I have variable income. So I just recommend actually taking out a piece of paper, or you can do a Google sheet and just start listing out all of the fixed and variable expenses. Just guess with some of the stuff. If you don't know exactly how much you spend on groceries, or you don't know how much you spend on gas, that's okay. Just start making a note of and guessing. Once you've done that, you can then look at more annual expenses, which I call true expenses. And these are things like, Christmas gifts and things that may only happen once a year, like insurance premiums or property taxes, things like that. And then just calculating what it would be if you were to put an equal amount towards that bill every month and making it a monthly bill. So if you had a $1,200 bill once a year, divide that by 12, and then you're going to add a $100 expense to your expenses so that you know that you are also thinking through those ones that are less common because we aren't thinking about them because they're not monthly payments.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing you do, is just look at your personal and your business expenses, do the same thing. And then we have a resource that we do in one of our workshops that you can actually reverse engineer your revenue goal based on those two numbers so that you know, okay, this is the monthly number on average I want to be hitting to pay myself this amount, to have the money for the expenses for my business, and making sure that that revenue goal is something that your business model can support and exceed. So that's the next step, is actually looking at, okay, my revenue goal is, let's say, $32,000 a month. What is my pricing currently? What is my bandwidth currently? What do I want to be able to do? I want to be working all the time? Do I want to see 10 clients a month? What is it? And you can start looking to see what changes you want to make practically to be able to start aligning your business to regularly hit or exceed that revenue goal.
That is so beautiful. And anybody can start. Anybody can start there. It's funny because it's like we're always surprised when Christmas comes.
Mm.
Comes every year at the same day. It's not like Easter. It is every day at the same day, every single year. And we're all like, what? When did that happen? Where was I? It just makes it so much better. Okay, but here's a question. And that really I'm asking on for me, but I'm going to be the voice of so many people because I have lots of different buckets as well. For different things that I'm saving for. But I find that when we have an unexpected expense, now suddenly I'm dipping into the Christmas gift fund to pay for that, or groceries were more than I thought they were going to be. So out it comes from the insurance payment or whatever. So what do you have in terms of counsel to keep us from dipping into those accounts and spending them on different things?
So a few years ago, I had a line called Fund Money, and I would fund it $200 a month. And every single month, I was having to bring money from other areas and add it in. And I just wasn't willing to admit that I was spending more than $200 a month on Fund Money. And it wasn't until I decided, and I was in this Airbnb in the middle of winter. I do it every year. I either go to Mexico or go somewhere to just reflect for a couple of weeks. So this was like sub-zero temperatures in this little loft shed on a side of a mountain next to a winery. And I remember sitting there next to the fire and going, Amber, your last 2 years, you've averaged $600 a month on Fund Money. Why don't you just adjust your budget for $600 a month instead of 200 and just own it? So that's what I recommend actually with any after using. So the framework that I teach on is what you mentioned, YNAB. You need a budget. It's an envelope system. And after you use it for a significant amount of time, 6 months, a year, you can start using the average spending feature on the report. And that then allows you to like reassess. Okay, maybe I just need to be paying myself a bit more. Or are these other things truly a priority? Because I am not an advocate of cutting expenses unless you're not using them and don't value them. Then absolutely cut it and be ruthless with that.
Thank you.
But do not cut expenses because it's simply just like, oh, I shouldn't be spending this much, when it may be the very top priority for your spending. So I think the more honest and transparent we can be with ourselves, we can then really step into and up level what it is that really truly brings us that feeling of love, and adjusting our goals and everything accordingly so that we can just live in that life. And then everything starts to actually expand naturally when we feel that more regularly.
Oh, thank you. First of all, thank you for your transparency about how much you had allocated and it really wasn't enough. And I thought you were going to say, I go to reflect for a couple of days. You go to reflect for a couple of weeks. That is hashtag life goal right there. And then you're at this freezing cold place. I know I'm picking up on the weirdest details, but you redeemed yourself when you were like next to a winery. I'm like, there's nothing about this is sounding good. The reflection. Oh, and I'm not a wine drinker, but I know you.
Such a beautiful view too.
Oh, I love it. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for like giving us a place that where we can jump off at and making it so easily doable instead of just feeling so overwhelmed and outnumbered by the numbers, so to speak. So I know people are going to want to know where to find you. What have you got going on that you can share with people? How can they work with you? You've got a super, super cool gift that you want to give to everybody. So let me turn that over to you. What have you got for us today, Amber?
Absolutely. So I would highly recommend that you sign up for our waitlist for our next masterclass. This is where we actually take you through this entire process of not only getting your revenue goal, but really looking at your business and making sure that you are aligned with what it is that you want to be doing and experiencing in your life. So you can go to amberduggar.com/masterclass for that. If you just cannot wait and you want to calculate your revenue goal right now, you can go to amberduggar.com/calculator, and that will give you a copy of the calculator. I do highly recommend getting on our wait list because it will just take that calculator to a whole nother level. And of course, I love connecting on YouTube and Instagram. YouTube is just, I think, I don't know, we'll give you the link. I think it's Amber Duggar. That's it.
And the show notes, so we got it.
With Amber.
I love it. And let me say an amen to both of those, because I also got the calculator. We were in a mastermind together, which is where we met. And I was like, this woman is amazing. And she's so feminine and so spot on with money. I love her so much. But she walked us through this process a little bit. And that calculator is so, so valuable. But then when I dove into her program, I'm like, so I would highly recommend getting into that masterclass as well. So get both, but get yourself into that masterclass with her. So Amber, again, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your love. Like, guys, I told you you would love her. She's so, you can just feel her love and her sincerity. And so thank you for sharing your gift with us, your genius with us, and for like letting us peek into your world for just a minute and inviting us into that and to our own, like our next level of greatness, and letting money support that as well. So thank you. I love you to pieces. I appreciate so much you being here, and all of you watching and listening. I echo what Amber's sentiments were at the beginning. What an honor it is for you to bless us with your time. And hopefully we've been able to contribute to you a little bit today. And until we see you again, remember, prosperity becomes you. Bye-bye.